Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of TFT Study Hall with your host, Frodan.
And Dishsoap.
And today is October 28th, 2024. And recording a little bit behind, but we are now in the 1421B patch. And it's the week of regionals and the World Championship the week after. Dishsoap, of course, will be participating in both. He's one of the few people guaranteed to play in the upcoming regionals and the World Championship for winning the previous one. So, Dishsoap, how you feeling going to the week of regionals?
I'm pretty confident. The thing is, the past couple regionals, which is the two I've done the best in, was the ones I was the least confident in.
Oh no.
So we'll see what that means. But I don't know. I feel pretty good from the start of it, but definitely still a lot of work to do.
Interesting. So why were you lacking confidence in the past couple of sets? Because you won one regionals, then you did really well in the other, and you qualified for Worlds and won it. So what was making you so feeling lack of confidence there?
I don't remember really the specifics, but it was just like I didn't really like I just didn't have stuff finalized. But like luck would have it, after the first day of both both regionals, I refined my game plan a lot for the day twos and day threes. In the past two, I don't remember exactly why I didn't really feel confident, but I mean there probably was a reason. Like I don't think it was like I think it was just like some meta stuff. I don't really think it was like some like outside performance factor.
Makes sense to me. All right. Hopefully everything falls into place as I think scrims are starting. And the meta is once again shaken up a small amount, but an impactful amount from not just the main patch, but also even that small little patch to Jinx. So let's talk a little bit about the 1421 meta. So to start things off, the S tier once again being pretty thin, but it looks like even though it's a small patch, there are a couple of things moving up. The first thing is that 6 Scholar Rise still on top. Rise in general seems like the most consistent forecast that people are playing around, both for the people that cap out with emblems at the moment, as well as adding it to reroll. Like if you're playing, like the Ari reroll or like the hero augments, it's like you're playing like the Scholar Rise in the back. So Rise, why is Rise so good right now in the meta, in your opinion?
It's a combination of like a lot of the stuff around him is very strong, specifically the early game. Ari has gotten a couple buffs like the past few patches, and she has pretty much always been the bridge from like the Zoe portal early game that actually gets you into your Rise. You're usually playing around like Ari item holder, so that's like really really impactful. Other stuff like Bastion getting buffed is like a two-way buff to Rise, because Rise can utilize the Bastion setups really really well, because I mean obviously he pairs with Taric. But then if your opponent is playing around the Bastion setups, Rise is like kind of the best unit to be playing there, because he can actually somewhat ignore. He either shotguns the like two of the Bastions and like hits one of the backliners, which is very very valuable. Like I've been playing games where like my Rise board might be weak. I'm playing like Rise 1. I can't beat anyone, but then like there might just be like some reroll Ari player win streaking killing the whole lobby, but then I can beat them because I can just ignore their front line. So he like he benefits from like both sides of Bastions being strong, which I think is pretty cool. Also, he sucked so much against Fjorgwyn, and that's really not meta anymore. Like the thing is, like Rise has been like they really haven't changed him the whole set. They've just been buffing and nerfing stuff around him, and then when his counters are out of meta, he's pretty strong. And when his good matchups are in meta, he's also pretty. Or when his counters are in meta, he's not strong, and when his good matchups are in meta, he is strong. But yeah, that was a lot of yapping for basically stating Rise is pretty good.
No worries. I think it's a really good summary of how so much can change without even touching things, right?
Mhm.
People always talk about in TFT, why not just buff and nerf all the things that like look bad or good, right? Like, okay, this unit's underperforming. Why not just buff it? If things are overperforming, why not nerf it? And it's all contextual because Rise's matchups, as you mentioned, with the lack of threat from melee warriors where they can dash the back line and really give Rise a lot of problems. It feels like he's a little bit more free to fight against those front to back compositions. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. If you notice across our S tier, we have, Rise with Scholar, Rise with Witchcraft, Rise with Portal, and there's a couple of other things you can do with Rise as well. I personally think I prefer playing Rise with Trait Tracker the most, but I know some people prefer like Varus because it feels like you can splash in the Arcana stuff. But at the moment, I would say Rise is definitely the king of the meta at the moment.
Definitely king of the forecast. he still has like some issues if you're playing him without emblem specifically, but he has like so many outs, and he's gonna be by far the most played forecast at the tournaments, or
That's
most
fair.
played
That's fair.
forecast
You
carry.
can't just generically like
Yeah,
slam Rise items and play Rise every single game. I think it's probably impossible to one trick Rise on a patch.
agree.
All right. We have Witchcraft kind of an S. We might move it down to A. It's like kind of on the S/A borderline. What has made Witchcraft feel a lot better? Again, not necessarily through any dramatic buffs.
Okay, not gonna lie, it just there's just like a stats thing. It just was doing pretty like Witchcraft plus one. All the Witchcraft ones were doing pretty well in the stats. So it was like, yeah, we need some S tiers. Okay, I'm gonna actually give a hot take. I actually don't think there's any S tiers, like at all.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
the thing is, okay, obviously plus one Scholar Rise probably deserves S tier. Two Tanky Kog'Maw deserves S tier. Ari with some like other specific augment setups is probably S tier, but like I don't know, like the augment's S tier. I don't really think the comp is. I think if you look at the comp on average, it's probably around like the A tier where you have like the other comps. I'm pretty sure we could like make some
Hmm.
like contrived argument that some other A tier line with X augment is S tier. Like you could say Eldritch with school mascot and plus one is S tier, but I mean that's just one augment. So I don't know. I like
Interesting.
I actually feel like there's legit like no consistent S tier.
Does that mean that the meta is fairly well balanced then? If there's no like S tier outlier and powers?
Yes, in the sense of like number of comps. I think people would appreciate if some of the other forecasts would be playable. I think like Arcana Varus being weak, like Karma default being weak, Fiora Gwen being a little off is definitely unfortunate because people usually think of forecasts when they think of the meta, but there's a ton of real comps that are viable. Um and a ton of very conditional like 5 cost and emblem centric comps that are also viable.
Yeah, I think even despite the fact that we just spent the past few minutes talking about Rise and playing around some of the emblems and some of these forecasts, I think people are saying that it's a heavy reroll meta. How much of a percentage of a game, let's say out of 10 games you queue up, are you playing reroll or you feel like people should be thinking about playing reroll?
I mean, I could just check. Well, I played like I think I played like 10 scrims a day, or it might have been like 9. I mean, that's close enough. I played reroll. I played it 5, so half the time. I don't know what the optimal number is, but that's I played it. I played it 50% of the time. That sounds honestly close to what I would do. But me personally, I do kind of like dealing the higher cost units a little bit more than the average person, I'd say. So maybe it's even higher than that.
There's definitely going to be some people who play a lot of reroll, like maybe as their entire game plan going to regionals. And then there's people probably are going to go maybe halfway. But either way, if you're a person that is has an aversion to reroll, like, oh, I'm never going to reroll, you're going to struggle a lot this patch. I think you need to actually at least think about it a little bit. And I think the thing that defines the meta for me right now is just the sheer tempo of the lobby. Because a lot of people who reroll are going to be one stronger on average, so they're going to punish you really hard on stage 3 in particular because they're not only rolling for upgrades but they're rolling for charm power, and sometimes it's a combination of both. But then they're going to also help other people hit rerolls even faster, and so you might load into a situation where you finally clear stage 3 where all the one costs are 3-starred, and that's through like worth the wait or just hyper rolling. And then in stage 4, you roll up, and all of a sudden there's like a Wukong 3, or there's like a Mord 3, there's a Vex 3, and you're not going to kill anything from there. You just get completely like 7 0'd. And it's not entirely uncommon just so for like 5 players to be dead by stage 6. I've seen like stage 5 end, and there's only 2 players alive at times.
Yeah, that's I've seen that a few times too. Are there really any people that are like left in the competitive scene that actually just like that actually just don't play real? Like, is that still like a species that exists? I feel like they died out a while ago.
So I will say that there is one person that was in scrims for global scrims that was
Mhm.
really interesting. He's currently the rank 1 global player in the world. His username is Ironbog and he's from Taiwan. He's 2300 LP just in general, which is very impressive. Even if it's not a major server, just climbing that high is really
Mhm.
impressive. And he didn't reroll more than one time on his climb, but he didn't actually play that many games. It's one of those things where like he plays an efficiency thing, like maybe he plays 3 games a day, 4 games a day. So he was a player that I was very intrigued and interested in. I watched him for scrims. He still heavily leaned towards 4 costs, but he did reroll every now and then. So it's even the most person that doesn't want to actually reroll is still doing it, a few times every now and then. I think it's impossible to avoid it completely for this upcoming regionals meta. All right, let's talk about our favorite comps in the A tier. Actually, let's start with the compositions that people think are S tier and maybe explain why they aren't. I mean, going back to what you said that you think there are no true S tier comps, but I think a lot of people have in their mind that mages are up there and that, hunters like Wukong Jinx is up there. Or even the shapeshifters that was like winning a lot of lobbies and whatnot. So let's just talk about like why they aren't there. So from your POV.
I'll say Shapeshifters is the closest because the Briar Smolder board still easily wins lobbies. It is still very very strong. It's the small issue with it now is that like Shyvana is not as much of a beast. She took a nerf to like her base HP and the dragon bonus. So like if you have AP items, you'd still put it on her. But like if you don't, I think it might be better to put on Nasus now. But I mean Nasus has never been amazing. So you're like sometimes lacking like the third damage that you might need. But like usually Briar 2 and Smolder are enough. Like you'd only lose to like the turbo disgusting high rollers. So I think shapes are like actually the closest usually. But that's with the caveat that it's like inconsistent and you easily might just die before you ever get there, of course. I think Wukong and mages both have a like a really really big weakness right now to Bastion setups. All of the hero augment reroll Bastion setups, like just normal RE reroll, and then also like if Rise boards play for Bastion, they really really struggle into that as well. Because both mages and hunters are comps that try to burst the opponent down in the first 10 seconds of the fight, and that's when the Bastion's defensiveness or defensive stats are doubled. So it just is like a really, really bad matchup, basically. Hunters gets it the worst because Hunters get it the worst because they need a reset as well, and then you can't even reset like when even their like Poppy 2 is like unkillable for like 7 seconds, basically. It's really just like Bastion's kind of holding them back, I think.
Yeah, and just a note on hunters, I see a lot of people also struggle with just being item starved in general. And I see people, for example, forego building things like, Last Whisper and even utility because they're prioritizing very specific items for Wukong Jinx and they build utility last. They're relying on things like Jinx ignoring armor and Twitch to try to get past things, and they get punished really hard, like by like a Lilia 2 that they just can't kill, or like even just a random Shen. So I totally see what you're talking about. Okay, talking about other things in A tier, how is Callista with Rakan nerfed? Is it still very good, or is it kind of a shell of its former self? Where's Callista?
I think it's still good. I only have a few games to go off of. I've seen it like on multiple occasions. Like they hit the full board. They seem like they're in a good spot. They're win streaking like stage 4, part of stage 5, and then they just like crash into a fourth or third or something on stage 6. It just doesn't seem like it has enough power to actually close out games at the highest level. But I don't know. Like it's still super solid. You get your double rage blade Callista 2, you get your juicer Rakan 2 frontline. You're gonna have a good time most of the time. It's just in my experience, it like kind of flounders at the end. And then obviously, if you like don't hit the full setup, you're like kind of really screwed. That might be just like a guaranteed eighth in this meta, since like you were probably super low HP and like if it's a real meta, there's not as many free boards to go against on stage 4 as well.
Yeah, I feel like I rarely see the Callistas cap out really high, at least in the scrims. It might still succeed on ladder. It feels so much more of like a top 4 oriented comp right now.
Yeah. I mean, I actually did see like an extremely high cap Callista game, and that was one of the games that floundered to a fourth. Like it was like level 9 on 4-5 with everything 2-star.
And went fourth?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean, I will say one thing.
went fourth
That
on level 10.
Oh my god, he got to level 10. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I will say one thing, which is 9 fairy is still really, really good. And if you look at the stats, the 3-2, 4-2 fairy crest and the emblems that you can get still can be really good. And so one of the big things to think about is if you're open to the Callista and the fairy line, what are the likelihood you can chase that 9 fairy? and it does feel insanely powerful. 9 Fairy and the stats are still beating like a lot of really powerful things, even just on Recon 1, Callisto 1. So just keep that out in mind. All right, let's talk about some comps that maybe are hit or miss for some people. Multi Strikers, Hui, the new Warwick reroll without Corrupt Vampiric Scepter, Eldritch. Which of these do you like the most, and which do you hate the most?
I like Eldritch the most, I think. Okay, the thing is, like, I only play it from the juicer spots, as in, like, early Syndra, upgraded Elise, 2/1/3 Eldritch, good augment, or you just high roll the 3/2, high roll like a +1 or a school mascot on 3/2. And I think the real version's the best now because of like all the Syndra and Nyla buffs
Yep, agreed.
recently. But I've seen it do very well. It doesn't usually win, but it does well. And I like it the most.
Neela in general seems to be much more scary at 3-star. If you can get items on her, I think people kind of forgot because she's been mediocre for so long in the set. At the very beginning, she was quite dominant, but now it feels like she's almost back to that level of like she can actually take over games if you have a good setup for her.
Yeah, maybe I need to play her from a different setup because I don't know. I had a pretty rough warrior game today. But
Okay,
okay.
fair enough.
The thing is, it was like Radiant Portal, and I'm pretty sure melee comps just suck in Radiant Portal. Like
Radiant Portal?
or like Radiant Item Portal. You get a Radiant item on moles. I think melee comps just
Okay.
like I don't know. I had 3-star Cat, 3-star Kali, 3-star Nyla on like 4/2 with Warrior +1, and I kind of just lost every fight.
So allegedly, and then this is underground tech.
Yeah.
I've been told by multiple people, by some people who play the lines, some notable players in the EU, but people are itemizing Neela incorrectly. It's less about things like the Bloodthirster
Yeah.
Stairs Cage, and much more about like straight up AD on her, like Infinity Edge, Deathblade, things like that. So maybe that's partially why results can be mixed on Neela because itemization might not be optimal right now.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I ended up with like Radiant Rudons because it was like the only rated item that was takeable, and it was just like mid, and I just
Yeah,
died.
I can see that being pretty bad. So,
Yeah.
um, is Warwick reroll actually viable without any artifacts whatsoever? I'm seeing some people jam him just straight up, like Rage Blade, Edge of Night, Titans, Quicksilver, just straight up Warwick reroll.
It is, but it's not great, and you basically you just cap extremely low is the problem. He's incredibly intimidating throughout all of stage 3 and stage 4. And there also are some like specific augment setup, like the Edge of Night augment's amazing. The Rageblade one, like it's
Anger
amazing.
issues.
Anger issue is amazing in the stats, but honestly, it doesn't not really pass the eye test for me personally. But it is amazing in the stats. Also, it does really well with like pumping up. Surprisingly, it's like the only pumping comp that like pumping up actually pops off in. But the thing is, like, you feel like you're just building such an advantage throughout the whole game. You're just win streaking all the time. You feel so powerful, and then you kind of just can't convert at all in the late game. You just go forth. But honestly, like that's like fine for a comp to like the like it's fine for a comp to do that. I guess it just like feels kind of bad when you're playing him. I think.
It feels bad if you're like the low roll player that you just can't kill Warwick because you don't have anti heal,
Yeah.
you don't have the single target burst. But then you like see it from the other side when you're playing Warwick. Like, how does this comp ever like do anything stage 5 when people get things online? It
Yeah.
just feels like he gets completely bullied, especially by like that. Like we talked about that wall of the bastions. I've seen Warwick also get stuck there, and it feels like he can't ever get anything done.
Yeah, I had a Galio 3 learning to spell with 3 tank items and like a mage comp. And the way Galio reduces damage is he reduces it by a flat amount scaled with his AP. So it was like learning to spell 7 mage AP on Galio. I think he was like reducing flat damage by like 80 or something. And I don't like okay. Honestly, I should know this, but I actually don't. Like when Galio double cuts, I don't know if he gets like double the amount of damage reduction or not. I actually don't know. But the important thing is the Warwick was like doing like no damage to him on every auto because like Warwick does damage by just autoing them a bunch. And when they're all flat, and when they're all flat reduced by infinite, like he just isn't taking damage
He's
at
doing
all.
like 1 damage per auto attack.
Essentially, yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. All right, so that's all the A tier. B tier, let's talk about some comps that have potential. The first one might be a composition that's actually doing well in the late game stats. The win rate is very high, and that's 8 Bastion Flex. Essentially, you play 8 Bastions, you try to get to 9. It's like a fast 9 comp. I call it the AP variation of Shapeshifters. So Shapeshifters is like AD. You're playing Briar and Smolder, and you're trying to like play, fast 9 and try to get the 3 dragon. I call this the AP variation. You just play 8 Bastions and you just play like any AP in the back line. It's like Milio, Zareth, maybe play like Rise, some combination of it. So what are your thoughts on this comp? Is it real? Is it just fake because it's survivorship bias? You get to 9. Of course, it's going to look good if you have Diana 2, Zareth 2, Milio 2, like all these legendaries.
I mean, it's real. It's just like very few spots you can actually take a Bastion. Like you can take Bastion spat and then just rely on yourself to be able to go to 9. Usually, one of your augments is something that gets you to 9, and then the other augment has to be Bastion spat. So you're like probably only playing off one real augment most of the time. It's just kind of weird, I guess. But it's good. Like if you get level 9 8 Bastion with the Zareth and Diana, it's actually amazing. It kind of beats everything except for Callista, believe it or not. I actually think it just
Oh,
beats
really?
everything. I think it beats everything but Callista.
You
Because
just can't kill Rakan fast enough?
yeah, and then also Callista's like super, super tanky for a backliner, so you end up wasting a lot of damage. You end up wasting a lot of damage, like just chipping her down, and you can actually end up killing her. Especially if you have something like Combat Caster, the Calista will actually never die. And then the thing is about Bastions, like 8 Bastion gives you a ton of stats, but a lot of the power in Bastions just in general is the fact that they double in the first 10 seconds. So any comp in the game that does most of their damage past the 10-second mark will like do a lot better in the Bastions. For example,
Mhm.
Callista, she does most of her damage outside of that. So that's kind of the main reason she can actually, like, since she's actually ramped up, she can kill them after the 10 seconds is up.
She does. And then also I think Diana kind of throws herself into the
Yep.
fray. So what ends up happening is you put like a weaker bash in the corner, Calista kills that, Diana dives in with her snowfall, and then Calista targets her, and then she just won't lock off until Diana's dead. So especially if you have 1-star Diana, she gets popped really easily. Goes back a little bit to something also we talked about, which is I think itemization for this composition is also really important. I think Archangels is like very, very important because you're trying to just basically play infinite stall. So Archangel Zareth, Archangel Diana,
Yep.
Talisman of Ascension is like bananas in this composition because you're stalling for infinite. But it is very fun, and I think people I'm just gonna say it. If you enjoy this comp but hate Callista, there's a little bit of a paradox going on because it's basically similar in concept. But I do see some people in chat going, "Whoa, 8 Bastion, that's so cool!" But oh my god, Callista, I'm falling asleep.
Yeah, I mean, people don't really care about like what the comps actually do. They just care if they've seen it before, which is like what like I kind of don't understand because there's some like very entertaining comps that like people will just bench because you played it before. Like I think Shapes is extremely entertaining to play and watch,
Yes.
but like you just get benched playing Shapes because you played the past 2 games. Like what do you guys even want? This comp is fucking lit to watch. Like I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna win out with 2 HP, and like everything just explodes. Like I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, like Heartsteel as well in set
Yeah,
10. It's I mean to this day
bro.
my
Like they're
favorite trade
benching
ever.
card. Yeah, they're benching cards still. I don't even get it.
All right. The only other comp I want to kind of highlight here, because I think we've talked about a lot of these comps in totality over past couple episodes, and they pretty much are the same. But the one thing I will say is that I do think going back to like Eldritch Reroll, what makes it good. We talked about Neela, but Syndra, they did buff her again, right? This is like what
Hmm.
the 5th patch in a row they buffed her, and I do think she has her moments. You said that you need to have the juicer spots. There's also another couple of ways that people have been playing Syndra. Like you can play her as the primary over Cassiopeia now because Cassiopeia has really severe fall off issues. So instead, if you prioritize Syndra and you carry her, she can actually scale long enough. And she is one of the carries that kind of goes back to what Rise is. She can actually hit the backline now and help you try to like leapfrog. So I've had a couple of very successful Syndra games. I think my scores with her are like 1-1-8-7-6 or something like that. So it is something that it can be very all or nothing if you have the spot for it.
I personally have only seen it do well with spellcasters or what the forge. Like actually only those two.
Okay. I mean, Mana Zane is insane on her, which is partially part of it, I
Yeah,
think.
there's a lot of Ornn items that are just very good in the line in general. And then like Zanya's Cassio is actually good because she can actually like finish off the fights. And then Menazane Cinder is disgusting. I just get mad when I see people hit spellcasters, man.
I think that augment's way too good. That was one augment that I remember
Yeah.
Mortdog was asking, like, what should we change? And I requested it, but I think I requested it too late because he's like, yeah, actually, I think that augment's too busted. Zonia's is it's so uninteractive, man. Whether it's Cassio, whether it's Vagar, whether it's Rise, whatever. It's so annoying.
Yeah, fuck Zanya's. The thing is, like, there's usually not that many bullshit units with Zanya's. Usually it's like it's actually, I think it's actually perfectly healthy on melees. It's just really, really toxic when there's range units that can kill like 4 units, like 1v4 from full health. And there's a few of them. I don't know. And then like I just hate when it's meta because like you just kill their whole board, but then you just lose because they just got this one prismatic augment.
You know what the worst part is for me is that they also only win by one. And so if you're in a situation where you know you're playing for the bleed out for like hopefully a good third or something like that, but everyone who's just like hanging on because they're losing by only 1 unit and they're not dealing enough damage, you're like, oh my god. So it just feels like the lobby isn't dying fast enough. And then you're in a situation where it's like, 6 players are alive at 1 life. Ugh.
Yep.
All right, that covers most of the meta. Are there any other comps that you want to talk about?
I think Sweet Tooth, if you might be actually okay, but like you like just don't play any Honeymancy, low key. I haven't really seen that many people do it, so I can't really say with any confidence. But I think that might be a thing. Like you just don't play
Just
any
Bastion,
Honeymancy.
Nunu.
Yeah, pretty much. Like with Ari, probably.
Okay. Because the variations that I saw was that they just played Kog'Maw, but I think I like Ari better. In general, when it's like AP frontline, AD backline, or vice versa, like Wally Poppy with like AD frontline, AP backline, I always feel like it's so awkward. Trying to like line up the damage and like, well, I don't have Shred or Sunder for the other half. So maybe Ari makes much more sense. We did lump a bunch of the hero augments into Ari as a variation, but we have a cap of 3. We can't actually show more than 3, so maybe Sweet Dudu just hangs in the back.
Yeah, sure.
All right, that's the meta section. Let's wrap that up. Check out our tier list over at TFTAcademy.com/tier list. In the meantime, let's go ahead and hop over to our second section, Fact or Fraud. Fact or Fraud, where I throw out an observation about the meta, usually data backed, and ask Dishsoap, is that factual or is it fraudulent? However, the first one is not really data backed. It's more of a conversation that's happening within the community, which is around Yuumi and how to actually use her, because you attach her to a lot of backline carries and get scaling stats, but people are starting to put it on frontline units. And it's pretty important for mages in particular because your frontline is very varied. Sometimes you're carrying Vagar or you're carrying Seraphine Soraka, and sometimes you're tanking Vex, but maybe you're tanking Galio, maybe you're tanking Rumble. So the statement is this, Soap. It's better to put Yuumi on frontline units like Vex than backline units like Vagar, Seraphine, and Soraka. Is that fact or fraud?
Fraud only because it depends. I actually put a lot of thought into this because like I was kind of just defaulting to the front line after they changed, like because she gives like less stats now but more healing. But the thing is, like, sometimes your front line just isn't like the one specific frontline unit you're buffing really just doesn't need it, or doesn't like use the available healing the best. For example, like if you are playing Blitzcrank 3, I'm pretty sure if you have Yuumi, you're like not putting on the Blitz, you just put it on your backliner. Maybe like Rumble or Galio 3, you can put it on like Rumble or Galio 3. But if you're playing 4 Vanguard, like probably not, because like you're probably just playing too many frontliners to just like, and then you probably need more damage. But if you're playing specifically Vex frontline, it's like kind of always on Vex in mages. The thing is, like, you don't only play Yuumi in mages. Like if you're playing a portal setup, it probably always goes on Rise, because like it doesn't really matter if you're like healing your Taric. You have like you have like 3 other units in the front line that are the exact same tankiness as Taric, basically, or like probably slightly less. So it doesn't really matter if it's on Taric or not. Maybe you put on like Diana too, but otherwise you just put on Rise. So I think it just depends. Like if you're actually like trying to play around like a turbo frontline unit that like you need to stay alive or else your comp just like completely dies, you put it on your frontliner. If you're playing just like a bunch of frontliners, so like everything, like other stuff can take the load, you can probably just put on your backliner.
Yeah, well said. I agree. I think that it really depends on the situation. Very similar to how in some spots when you're playing Arcana, a lot of people default Tahm Kench. It's like it's always Tahm Kench. In some rare scenarios, you might actually switch things around.
Yep.
So just keep in mind what your comp is lacking and needing, and adjust accordingly. Second statement. Despite getting buffs by a full item, Unstable
Wait.
Treasure Chest is still the worst performing support item in the
Wait.
game.
This got buffed by a full item.
Yeah, it went from 3 to 4 items.
I did not know this. Huh.
And so Unstable Treasure Chest is still the worst
Interesting.
support item. Is that fact or fraud?
Oh, I think so. People underestimate how bad it is to sack a unit. It doesn't really make any it. It doesn't seem that bad to put your main tanks in like the second row, and then like putting like I don't know like your random like trait bot tank like your Rumble and your Kench comp in the front line with the treasure chest, so we can give a bunch of items to the rest of your team. Like it doesn't seem that bad to do that, but in reality, like the way it messes up your positioning just kind of sucks. And if you like position it in a way that it doesn't mess up your positioning, it's just gonna proc way too late and not give you enough value. So I just hate the positioning, and then I just hate the positioning with it, basically. And if you're positioning normally, it's just gonna proc way too late to be worth it, even if it's giving a full extra item.
So then, this is actually going to go into our next main topic for today, which is talking about how to optimize charms and increase your win rate with it. Does that carry over also to Treasure Party, which is a charm that gives you Unstable Treasure Chest? Is that much more acceptable, or do you still feel the same way about that?
Oh, I mean, it's a charm. Like, okay, so like the thing is, Unstable Treasure Chest is not amazing when compared to the other support items, but that doesn't mean it's like a negative effect. Like, if you don't mess up your positioning and you just have it on your board, it's still a positive effect, and it's still like even like a powerful effect. It's just not as good as the other support items, basically. But when you're thinking about a charm, that doesn't really matter because usually you don't really have the luxury to choose between them, and then the ones that give you the unstable treasures are like fine as a charm. Like a charm that gives you the worst support item is fine.
Right. And I'm hearing that it's like more about the opportunity cost because you could have had a better support item, but getting one for free, you're paying gold for it off a charm, feels much more higher upside.
Yeah, whenever like I say like, oh, this item sucks, this augment sucks, it just means that like the other thing I could have clicked was better. It's not
okay. I'm learning to speak dish soap. I like it.
It doesn't mean that like what you're it doesn't mean it's like a negative. It's just not as good as the other stuff.
Sure.
I mean, it's very rare that something is actually a negative.
Yeah, I guess maybe if there's like severe trade-offs in the item, like a Sylvamere Dawn or a Corrupt Vampiric Scepter type thing, that can be a negative. But yeah, like everything is just pure upside. If you're getting stats and extra items, stuff like that, can't be bad.
Oh, high key the dummy charm that throws the dummies. If you're going against hunters, I actually think that's a negative a lot of the time.
Crash test dummies.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's like a niche interaction though.
All right, third statement. Mogul's Mail got buffed from 5 to 7 on every stack, so they get more HP. Pretty significant HP buff if you multiply by 35. And has now considerably closed the gap to the other artifacts. And so now you should highly consider picking Mogul's Mail on All That Shimmers over Gold Collector. That fact or fraud?
I mean, if you have the upgrade in the slam, probably, yeah. I'd say so.
When you have a slam, you mean another frontline craftable item.
Yeah, like a tank item, basically.
Okay. I like that. And it is true because you can put it on Wukong, you put it on Vex, you put it on Mordekaiser, Blitzcrank too. And you're kind of going back to farming 1 gold a turn, which is a lot. You can farm. It's actually more consistent than Gold Collector because Gold Collector can be really swingy. Sometimes it prints like, the 3 per round, but you can go like a huge drought, especially if you have a weak board. I see people like auto-click Gold Collector, but they're playing like Twitch 1. Right? It's like, what are you actually going to... There's nothing to collect, man. You're not killing anything. The Mogul's Mail at least almost feels like it gives you that guaranteed one, assuming you have a Stone Plate, a Warmog, something to slam with it.
I think the one thing that's like a little sus with Mogul's Mail sometimes with the tank item slam is that you can like sometimes run into the problem of just having way too many tank items. Because like if you're taking it in a spot where you have an upgraded tank, you're probably not going to be losing that many fights usually. Like upgraded tanks with a slam are pretty strong on stage 2, so you're probably not going to be getting like the best carousel pick. And then if you already have 2 full tank items, basically, if you end up like having to take defensive items on the next carousel, you can kind of get over flooded with tank items, and then just not have any damage, and that would not be very good.
Yeah, that is true because people tend to take offensive components first off of carousel, so you might be stuck with The dreaded chain, cloak, best scenarios.
And then you're like really upset. At least you got the
Never.
1 gold per turn to come back. Yep.
You just pray for the Reforger, just rip the Reforger on your straight up defensive components, but get another one
Yeah.
anyways. Oh
True.
man. I had a situation where I reforged, I had like 3 vests and a belt, and then somehow I reforged the vest into like a cloak. It was just like so sad. But yeah. All right. Statement number 4. 9 multi-striker is never worth chasing. It needs 2 emblems and level 9 or less, at least 9 slots. And yet it averages a 3.33 71 26 slash line, 71% top 4 rate, 26% win rate. These stats are terrible. So is it true? Factor fraud. 9 multis is never worth chasing.
Well, it's like true in the fact that it's like by far the worst thing that requires 2 emblems in the game. By far. But I don't really think that means never. It's just like, well, I guess you mean like when you mean like worth chasing, it's probably not worth taking like a pan of carousel, or like if you already have this bad, like taking the other, like taking +2 when you get taking like when you could be taking a strong combat augment. It's probably not
Yeah.
worth it in that case. But if you just have natural 2 spats, like if you have like the normal multi-board with 2 spats and you make it to 9, I mean, it's not going to be worse. It's just like you're probably never going to be in that spot realistically.
Yeah. The times where I see succeed, you're playing, I don't know, like a wandering trainer dummy. You have a multi
Yeah.
striker, you're leaning into it. It's stage 6, you're trying to close out the game. Oh, a multi striker emblem on carousel. I could definitely use that. And nobody else wants it. Like, that's where I feel like the 9 multis can actually do really well. But like you said, when it's at the cost of an augment, at the cost of item economy, right? You're like taking it off the carousel, and it's a bow, right? So you need bows in these comps. It can be really expensive. Your lack of items, your lack of tempo can be really devastating. And it's not worth the payoff compared to 9 fairy, which you could play 9 fairy and all of a sudden you're hard stable. But you play 9 multis. I think I went 8th. I lost streak like 3 or 4 rounds right after that. And I was like, this sucks. It's terrible.
Oh yeah, like the other things that require you to emblems, you can realistically like sack your HP down to 1 or 2 lives, and if you hit it, you're fine. And that's like not the case at all with 9 multis. So yeah, never do that shit.
Yes, agreed. Okay, the last one, number 5. Due to the immense lobby tempo of reroll metas, it is better nowadays to pick heroic grab bag at 2-1 to use them instantly on a unit as opposed to waiting for it to be used later in the game for a 3-star. That factor fraud.
Instantly is crazy. I don't think so. That augment is like pickable now because they just give it so much base gold. It's basically just like taking rating for gold, but it's like better for reroll comp specifically. But I think using it instantly is actually insane, by the way. The reason is like upgrades are obviously good, but upgrades are like when you have limited items in the early game, they're not gonna really guarantee you any kind of streak. Because like a 2-star or 3 cost, not that much better than a 2-star 2 cost if they have no items. Like when stuff starts getting itemized, that changes. But usually you just don't have enough items to justify it, and using them early, unless you're getting like a huge streak out of it, is really just going to delay you, because the last 2 units and rerolls are the hardest to find, because that's when like there's more out of the pool at that rate, and then like when you're starting off, there's like none out of the pool.
Yeah, agreed. The last 2 are the most expensive, and I see a lot of people go this play. Just as a small anecdote, I played in a game with Wage and Iverson.
Mhm.
He heroic grab bag duped his Wukong too. He went on something crazy, like an 11 streak, 12 streak going to stage 4, and was very strong. But he kind of got pigeonholed into a spot where his items didn't work out, and so he couldn't actually play Wukong Jinx. He had to play like some kind of like AP backline because he just kept getting like the bad items for
Mhm.
that, and he went 6, like despite having like an insane start with it. And I was just like really surprised because I kind of thought he was in a position to actually capitalize. The lobby was kind of crazy. Everyone was really strong, myself included. So it was a little bit of an anomaly, but that happens more often than you think, even if you go onto like a crazy streak.
Wait, I didn't think anyone actually did this. I thought like I saw people do this on like set, like the whatever set this augment was released on the PB of that set, and then like I don't know, like I was just convinced it was bad immediately, and I never did it.
It does happen. It happened. I have streams where people have done it in my lobbies. It's happened probably at least like 3 or 4 times since this patch started for me. I've
Mm.
seen people do it. So It's a thing, Dishsoap, for sure.
Okay, sure.
It was actually also a thing in previous patches. I don't know if you were maybe on vacation during it, but when the patch with Hecarim was giga busted, people would play it on Hecarim too.
That one I can see. Hecarim was like better than forecasts on that patch.
Yeah.
Like that one I could actually see, because the thing is, like, Hecarim 2 was amazing, and then you couldn't even hit Hecarim 3 anyways. So it like
Yeah, it
didn't
didn't
matter.
matter. You just
Yeah,
had time with Hecarim too.
yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that one I could see, honestly. But I don't think any of the
Okay.
3 costs are good enough to justify that.
All right. Well, there you go. Now you know. So that closes Factor Fraud. And let's transition to our big topic of today, which is optimizing charms and how to increase your win rate with them. Okay, so for this topic, we are kind of revisiting a topic at the end of the set, right? The very first thing that we talked about was charms for set 12. And now this is going to be one of our last, I think our second to last episode for the set. So I figured we might as well just like kind of dump everything that we have learned about charms and maybe do a little bit of evaluation of how we liked it. So I figured we could either ping pong or just kind of talk about different things. I can go down a list. So let's start off with this first category for charms. I'm calling it "Is It Worth?" And it's going to be about a lot of stuff of like, is it worth doing these things or picking these charms or trying to optimize its value? So the first is one that I like to talk about a lot, which is Major Wish. And it's Major Wish when you get a random effect in situations like when you roll down or you're in tight spots where you kind of like need to hit. Because a lot of people look at it and they just think, oh, I didn't get what I want. And so a lot of people skip it and it's kind of expensive. So talk to me about Major Wish, Dishsoap. Do you think in general it's like worth picking? And if so, when are you trying to look for it?
I kind of like always click this on early stage 5. I think that's like kind of the sweet spot for this, because that's when like kind of all the effects are nice, because all of the combat effects are very, very strong, pretty much, that just because like you can't secure any of them. So like on stage 5, I think you're like fine with both combat, or specifically early stage 5. I think like after Carousel's a little sus, because you might be like 1 or 2 lives. But like early stage 5 when you're 3 lives, I think this is like kind of when you want to pick it. Because you want gold can help you push 9, rerolls can help you finish out your team. And then the combat charms are just really strong. You usually want to be rolling for like a combat charm on stage 5. I think like clicking the stage 4 is usually not correct. It's just like 5 gold, like kind of really expensive. If you're really, really rich from like an econ augment or something, it's like, I think it's okay to click. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world, but even if it gives you like one of the really good combat augments and he wins you the round, like 5 gold's really expensive. And it like I don't like, usually on stage 4, it's not gonna be that much of a diff compared to just having any combat charm, like a 1 gold combat charm or something. So stage 4, no, but early stage 5, thumbs up.
Okay, because I've heard people talk about like clicking it before their roll down
Mhm.
and trying to see if they can get gold with the free rerolls because it's high impact. But there can be some pretty big downsides of using 5 gold for a roll down that effectively isn't helping you hit. So I think that's a little bit of the debate. Okay, so Dish, so when are you able to click these conjures? Are they generally always good? Or, I mean, I think the support anvil and the artifact anvils are much better than Conjure Emblem. I don't think we have to talk too much about that. But I do want to ask when you feel like it's worth doing it if you haven't hit.
I think support and artifact charm are like kind of always click. Unless like for some reason like you don't have any of your team upgraded. But like, can it even offer it to you if you're like actually piss broke? I think you have to have a certain amount of gold for them to even offer it. So usually it's something you can buy, and just being up a full artifact or support throughout the whole late game is like incredible, even for the amount of gold you have to pay. This used to not be the case. Like when encounters were a thing, people would actually skip the Lysandra encounter that would give you a support item or like an artifact, because like 9 was better than an artifact, but artifacts and support items are better than 9 this set. Reasons for that is like probably just the 5 costs aren't as good, and there's like less gold, so it's like harder to get 9 in the first place, so it doesn't really matter if you can't get there. So yeah, I think the support and artifacts are amazing. Anvil is also amazing if you need a specific component or if you know you're on odd components. Very, very, very common thing to do with this is you see this in your charm options on like 4-6 or sometimes even 4-5 if you're like really, really high rolling, and then you just lock. You lock until Raptors, and then you see how many components you get dropped on Raptors, and if it's odd, you just click it, and then it's like 8 gold for a full item is incredible. It's like the best charm in the game, so it's worth locking once or maybe even twice.
I like it. I like it. Locking the shop, a rare play when you have a lot of gold, but it can be really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've like, I mean, like a lot of times I even lock this on 4-5 if you're like really really high rolling, like if you already have all the upgrades, because like if you consider locking the shop worth 2 gold, you would easily pay 12 gold for a full item, and like if you get even components, you don't buy it, so like you kind of wasted 4 gold. But I think the EV like works out most of the time, or like all the time basically, because 12 gold for a full item, like a full item on stage 5, probably worth. I mean, I would click a charm that give a full item for like over 20 gold, probably.
Wow, that's really expensive. I mean, that's basically the level of an artifact. Artifact's 18 gold, man.
Well, yeah, I think artifact is like kind of undercosted for how good it is as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
Like
enough.
I
25 for support makes sense.
yeah, I mean, I would click artifact at 25 as well. So
Okay.
so just the fact that like you can complete your odd item, I think it's worth the luck a lot of the time.
Okay, fair enough. What about Conjure Emblem in your situation where you're playing like a Arcana Emblem and you're like, let's say you trait tracker and somehow you're like in a Conjure Emblem situation? That's the rare scenario where I think people can justify it. Is that still too expensive, or you think that's actually fine?
It is actually you do not click this with trait tracker, by the way. Trait tracker actually just scales off econ only, because you need to be able to be extremely flexible on your roll down based on what you cash out. And if you don't,
Okay.
and if you don't have the money set up for your roll and you were just going to die and go 8th, you need to be able to like buy a bunch of different 4 and 5 costs that it just costs a bunch of money with Trade Tracker. So clicking anything that's gonna make your roll down weaker is just bad. I also don't think you click this if you have like random Arcana plus 1. I think that's just fake. But I actually did click this for the first time in like probably over 100 games recently.
Yeah.
I had worth the wait jacks, and I didn't know what the fuck to play, because I mean, I didn't have like any items for any of the other multi strikers. Like, I'm just gonna load up and play Karma, like Karma 3-star jacks. That sounds a little suspicious because I didn't have a guaranteed Chrono plus 1. So I was like looking at my options. I was like, yeah, I mean, I can just put a 4-star jacks on, or 3-star jacks, and eventually a 4-star jacks on a lot of different boards. Let me just click this Conjure Emblem. I'm already like 60 gold, level 7 on stage 3 because I've just been win streaking the whole time, and I feel like I can use like more than half of these, so I just clicked it. And then I got Encanter and I played Karma, and it was pretty good. I went first.
There you go.
But I feel like the amount of spots where you're win streaking and then you also don't know what you want to play late game, and you can actually use a bunch of emblems, doesn't really happen that much at all. But I mean, it happened for me recently.
There's some truly bad ideas out there whenever I'm in a spot like this. They're like, you have Pandoras. It's totally cool. And I'm like,
No.
It's not.
I mean the issue is just it's very very it's just wastes, it's just very expensive basically.
It's just nothing. A lot of times it's just a belt. You're
Yeah.
paying for like a belt that you can't do anything with.
And like spending a bunch of gold on some permanent effect like this. Okay, you don't click this on stage 5 because it's just too random. But the reason it's just like not good, or you can't even get offered on stage 5. But the reason it's like bad earlier in the game is just because econ kind of scales the earlier you get it. Like if you're paying for stuff earlier, you're just gonna have a less money, and that's like even more true when you're considering the 4-2 roll down. It just like handicaps your roll down way too hard.
Okay. All right, let's talk about another one. Is it worth leadership? A champion holding 3 items get 300 health permanently. A lot of people get tempted by this. They even burn the removers immediately to try to guarantee it. And they feel like they can get immense value, especially if it's on a super tank. Talking about the Wukongs, the Vexes, the Rakans. Leadership, is it worth this though?
Wait, I like this one. I like this one a lot. But like I feel like a lot of people just flame this one, but I don't get it. I like this charm. 300 HP permanent is a lot. That's 2 belts. I like this charm. That's all I'll say.
Just a thumbs up, straight up endorsed by the world champ.
Well, I mean, like sometimes your tanks are just mid. Like I feel like if you're just playing like a hodgepodge of mid tanks, like maybe you don't want to click this. And if you're like actually needing upgrades and you need like a combat charm or something to like actually live in your 2 lives, like you don't click this. But you see this early enough, you have a decent 3-item tank. I'm very happy to click this.
All right, sounds good. The second category I want to go over are hidden rules or just things that maybe you didn't know, like some fun facts about some of these charms. So the first one that I have, I feel like we can just maybe like take turn and ping pong some of them because there's a lot. Is we'll start off something pretty easy, which is Shivanate, by the way, acts as a remover for components. Um, but it doesn't act as a remover for full items. So if you have a full item on a champion, it won't remove it at the end of the round. But if it had, say, a random component on top of it, it'll end up on your bench. So in pinch situations, maybe you can even use it as a remover on top of your usual power spike of the number of items you want.
Yeah, I feel like this tip was a lot more relevant before they just gave everyone infinite removers.
Yeah, it was. These days you have infinite removers, so it's less
Yeah.
valuable, but it's still a nice little trick.
You will actually, I mean, maybe you read this, but like you will actually not believe the amount of like challenger players like complaining to Riot on the Discord about the Shivanate charm because what they would do is they would click the charm, but for some reason they just had full items on their bench, so they would like Shivanate their Warbogs and then just like put it on their cog and then have Warbogs on cog, and then they would complain why I didn't remove it, but like why do you just have a Warbogs on your item bench? Like how does that ever happen? I've never had that happen in my life, but it was like multiple people. It was just so strange to me. Uh, Sorry, that was just like a one-off anecdote, but yeah.
Interesting. All right, you dropped me one.
Okay, this is like a very minor tech, but this is something I've like kind of always I'm trying to start to like kind of always do is I don't know what it's called. I'm so bad with names, but it's the charm. I actually remember this one. It's copycat. It's the one that you copies the enemy unit that you kill first. I started always delaying this charm because the theory is that like one round later, the average star level of your enemy's team is always going to be higher, and it costs you 1 gold to buy. So like if you win the round like originally, it gives you no combat power. You can use the round win gold to buy this, so you don't have to lose any units. Because sometimes like if you like try to buy this and level on 2-1 especially, you're kind of just screwed. Or like you probably have to like just sell something you don't want. So delaying it's good for that, but even still, like the odds that they find like a 2-cost unit instead of their like 1-cost shitter is just like kind of high. So you just always delay it, I feel.
Ah, interesting. I've been delaying it as well, but largely because sometimes I feel like I'm on the precipice of being able to kill a unit because I'm like holding like a bunch of
That
pairs.
yeah, that as well.
So I'm like, what gives me one more round to like kind of feel like I probably can actually kill a unit, especially if it's like 2-2, which is like you're about to level to 4 anyways.
Yeah, that's another reason for sure.
It's good. I'm all right. I'm going to drop one that I think a lot of people don't actually know, which is animate bench. This is a charm that says in every 6 seconds, a champion joins combat from your bench. What people don't know is that at least if you're on PC, you can hover over the unit that just got sent in and sell it and get that gold back. So that's one thing you can do to get ahead because sometimes people like wait for the round to end to like sell all their units to try to make interval. But what you can also do is use that gold to buy out your shop. And so if you have 5 gold, you should theoretically be able to animate your entirety of your shop. Well, I've seen a lot of people just say, well, I only have 5 gold. I animate bench. I'm just going to click this one unit. Just let that unit get summoned, sell that unit, hover over and click E or whatever your hotkey is for sell, and then click the next unit and just buy out your shop systematically. That guarantees you the full fight because every 6 seconds is 5 units, 30 seconds, an entire roster to be sent out there.
Yeah, PC diff. I'll give you even one better that probably even less people know about this charm. Is that like if the units on bench, if their traits are active on your board, they have the traits. This is extreme.
Whoa, really? So
Yeah,
the bastions are going to be even stronger in that situation.
I mean bastions are okay, but the best are Vanguard and Shapes, like by far.
Oh, right, because bastion expires after the first few seconds. You're right.
Yeah. And then the Vanguards like they just spawn in with like the shields, and then okay, actually,
Wait, so Vanguard gets thrown in with their shield?
no. Vanguards don't get thrown in with the shield, but they get the shield at the proc because the shield is start of combat, so it doesn't work on like
Okay.
the start shield doesn't work that way. But Shapes I think is the best because like if you're throwing in like a 3-cost and up shape, like they're probably going to cast. If they're not like taking a bunch of damage, and then they just cast. And if you're playing a Shapes comp, they just spawn it with like you're just spawning in like 2,000 HP ZZ Rots.
Yeah, that's crazy actually.
I don't know. I did this one time where I threw in like I threw in like 3 Narcissus, because I like sold it and then bought the other one. So
All
instead of
right.
like upgrading like 2-star Nasus, I just threw in 3 Nasuses, and it was actually crazy.
Dang. Okay. I didn't know that one. I learned something. All right. I wanted to do one just in case people didn't know. It's sort of commonplace knowledge, but just in case you haven't heard, there are hidden rules to the champions they get unstable treasure chest as well as suspicious trench coat. I'm talking about treasure party and surprise, which is like, a champion without items can gain these items. You have to have 5 units on the board, but it will guarantee be put on a front line facing unit. So if you have like Zillion and Bard and Olaf, it'll always go to that Olaf as the biggest priority, assuming you have 5 units on the board. If it's fewer, right, because you bench a lot of those units, then it'll be completely random based off the units that you had prior. So just make sure that you have that, because I've seen some people like reduce down to 4. This actually was happening in the EMEA Tacticians Cup. I saw a player who literally got second in the tournament, Alex didn't even realize his rule. He benched everything and then clicked suspicious trench coat, and it went on to Zillion 1 instead of his Olaf 2. And I was so sad because I was like, oh my god, he messed up.
Yeah. That's like even worse than you think, because it can just roll on the stuff you're just holding on your bench randomly. It's like something you like can't even play, so you're just like turbo down a charm.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly. Just spent a bunch of gold for it
but
too.
yeah, just remember the 5 units basically.
All right, just hope. Explain to me the rules of Moonlight Ritual. Everyone always says, "Oh my god, you have like a 3-star or like a 4-star unit of a champion." This one says a random 1 or 2 cost stars up. What are the rules?
I think it can, like, if you have a 1-star unit and a 2-star unit, it can even, can't it 3-star? It just can't go from 3 to 4-star unless you already have like full 3 stars on your team, right? Or no?
Oh, is that the rule? That's different from what I've come to understand.
Oh, okay. Honestly, I don't know. I actually don't click this because it's 3 gold. 3 gold is so much. It is
It's
so
pretty
much.
expensive.
I actually like almost never click this charm because like if you're playing a reroll comp, like usually you don't have like full 3 stars, so it's like kind of mid and it's 3 gold. And if you're not playing a reroll comp, it's just mid in general and it's 3 gold. So I don't actually click this enough to know, but I know you can't like cheese 4 stars unless you have like a solo 3-star. I don't know anything
Okay.
besides that, so I might be wrong.
Okay, so maybe we're wrong on this, but because I have something different. From my understanding, this is the same rules from Moonlight from Set 4 Fates, where it was literally a trait, and it was said your strongest weak unit, which meant like your lowest level unit, would always star up, and the tiebreaker would be whoever's holding items. So the common strategy was to reroll and 3-star everything, and then itemize only Aphelios. And then Aphelios was the tiebreaker because all of them were 3-star, and he would upgrade to a 4-star. Hence why they call it Moonlight Ritual. So in this case, let's say you're rerolling Ash, Jax, and Akali. If you have Jax 3 and Ash 3, but Akali 1 or even Akali 2, I think it's always going to target Akali like no matter what. But if you have all 3 of them 3-starred, then I think it's like the strongest of those units will actually potentially like upgrade of those.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know I had any strongest rules at all. And also, I don't know enough to like say this with confidence, but like a large part of my brain thought that like there was no restrictions unless it was to upgrade a 4-star.
Either through Spotify or for YouTube, please let us know in the comments below what actually is the rules, because we're actually confused on this one. All right, I have another piece of tech here. If you're playing Sugarcraft and you take a item, a charm for the next round, it'll count it as part of your cake stacking, but you have to buy it during combat because it technically can't work that fight. So let's say you start the combat and you buy a bunch of belts. You're not going to get the belts immediately because the fight has started. Instead, it'll put those 6 belts randomly at the start of the next buy phase. But because it's the start of the next buy phase, the sugar will count the belts. So that's a way for you to actually like use it to stack your sugarcraft a little bit quicker, which may or may not be the difference between whether or not you're able to snowball your sugarcraft.
I don't really have any of these like cool techs. Like all like the special charm stuff I know is like delaying the charms. I actually think about this a lot. Um, so I'll like give it like a few more examples of when you want to delay.
Okay.
If you like, sometimes it's like if you're on a loss streak and you see a combat charm, it's sometimes like correct to like not buy it, and then see if you like snap your loss streak and win. If you're like kind of unsure about your board, so you like don't buy the charm and like unless you win, and then if you win, you like buy to get the 2 streak. Isn't that a fair amount?
I know what you're talking about. Like, for example, the summon dummy is like one
Yeah,
of
yeah,
those
yeah.
things where you can buy it during the round, and if you like win, all of a sudden you turn your like 5 loss into a 2 win streak going into the creep rounds.
Yep. Also, I had this on the top of my head, and then I just forgot. Oh, it's on like 4-1 specifically. If you're like playing like a turbo, like if you're like ramping up for your 4-2 roll down, like just buy the charm on 4-1, even if it's trash, or like you delay the charm on 4-1 so that you actually like just don't have to buy a charm on your 4-2 roll down, so you see as many shops as possible. So you just like farm extra charm slots and extra like brain power because you're not thinking about charms at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, if you see like Aftershock and you're like, oh, it's 2 gold, you can just buy it
Yeah.
to try and activate for 4-2 and just enable that extra fifth shop slot as opposed to like, losing it every 2, 3 rolls.
I've seen a fair amount of people not respect that charms actually take a slot and like greed charms in spots where they're doing like these like 60 gold roll downs. Like I've seen like a lot of good players do this. Like they just lose so much roll efficiency because they're just like leaving their charm slot open. Like what are you even waiting for with these charms? Like you just click the first thing that's like okay.
Yeah, I feel like what ends up happening in a lot of those situations is that TFT is like a game where I compare it to being a waiter at a restaurant.
Mhm.
There's so many plates you have to hold at one time. And a lot of times you just kind of forget, or rather, you don't have the mental bandwidth to actually hold everything. And so I feel like what happens with a lot of players is that they look at the first couple of charms and they think, okay, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. And then I think they just stop seeing it. They like start thinking so much about their roll down and then they like kind of lose track of what's happening. And then, like, very subconsciously in their mind, they're just like blocking out that fifth shop and just like making a quick decision because they have to, as opposed to like thinking it's a good thing. Because in
Yeah,
TFT, it's so easy to miss those things, right?
yeah. I guess the tech here is that the charm is a shop slot, and if you click your charm, you get to see
Ah,
much
buy back
more.
your shops. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
what
yeah.
you're saying? Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you roll 15 times, you get a free extra roll if you just don't buy, or if you buy your charm. Is it 15? I can't do math. Something like that. Or no, it's every 3 shops on stage 4, I guess. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I got another tech here. Did you know that Queen's Gambit? This is a specific one if you are a dirty Callista enjoyer. It says if you win, gain a copy of your highest cost fairy. And most people associate this with Milio because Milio is a 5 cost fairy. But if you have Rakan and Callista on the board, apparently, this has been told to me, and I've never been disproven, but you are guaranteed to get Rakan no matter what, even though they're both 4 costs. I'm not entirely sure why. There's a lot of crazy theories about why that is, but I've yet to see it fail. I've done it like 2, 3 times, and it's always been Rakan. Have you ever seen Callista?
I feel like I have, but I only remember one instance of me taking this thing Callista and hit Rakan. That's the only instance I remember. But I feel like I've hit Callista before, but I can't really disprove it because I
Yeah,
don't.
listen,
Yeah,
I've been told that, and I was like, okay. And then every time I've done it since, the 3 times or so, it's worked. So that's just knowledge tech if you want to take that.
I mean it's probably like something behind the scenes in the coding. Like they're probably like Rakan has like the lower number in the database or something like that.
All right. Question about an interaction, Dish Soap. There's a charm that says golden armor. Your team gets 50 health for each 10 gold you have for the round. That's not your current gold, right? You can buy that and then it snapshots your gold and you can spend it afterwards.
Yes, but you don't want to click this exact like say you have 50 gold. If you click this, I believe it counts as if you're 49 gold. So it counts as if you're 40 gold. So you want to be clicking it.
Oh, so you want 51 gold,
Yeah,
not
you you
50.
you want you want to be clicking this at a +1, I think. Like you again, correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I've been told. I'm way too lazy to count the HP.
Dude, no one's going and clicking it, especially if you're playing like shapeshifters. Like, how are you supposed to like calculate that?
Yeah, so yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I'm not counting the HP, but I do know for a fact it does snapshot. So if you click, like, if you have this and you have a bunch of gold, don't feel afraid to roll down afterwards. You're not going to lose the HP. It does snapshot it.
all right. Let's talk about some optimization stuff. I guess we've kind of did because you
Yeah.
have been touching upon the subject of like delaying charms and like waiting for it. There is one thing with Crystal Ball. I have like a delay trick that I use, which is if I'm on a loss streak and I know that there's like fortune players or double down players like open for it, sometimes I delay crystal ball as long as I can to give myself maximum information of knowing who I'm going to match up against. So that way I can understand if I like need to full sell versus, hey, I'm going up against like the win streaker, so I can just play boards and try to kill 1 or 2 units.
Makes sense, yeah.
I actually think sometimes Earthquake and Aftershock can grief you. Even
Oh,
though you
100%.
end up having a powerful AoE stun, you have to remember one important thing is that when a unit is stunned, it'll start to target whoever is closest. And so I've had situations where a unit that loves to dive, for example, I think the biggest offender of this is Camille. Camille ends up jumping to the back line, and because it stuns, the first unit that a Vagar will target will be something like a Camille instead of actually targeting like your frontline tank like the Rakan, or if you're playing like a Chrono unit instead. So just be very careful. Even though these are powerful charms, sometimes they can cost you the fight, especially if you're really dependent on those units that get targeted.
The specific thing you have to keep in mind with this is that it's just bad if you're playing specifically like a solo frontliner, or just like even just like a frontliner that like takes aggro, and like a melee unit you want to keep alive. If you have like both those things, you probably don't click this, because like your units will walk up and then they'll target your melee that you want to keep alive instead of your frontline, which is just really really bad. I specifically remember someone playing Wukong Jinx and they clicked this, and I just got to kill their Olaf too for free, and their Wukong, and then like yeah, and then the Wukong afterwards, and then they just lost for free. Basically, they just like spent 5 gold to kill their Olaf. But it's usually fine if you're like playing anything besides solo frontline plus a melee unit.
And then the last delay tactic that I have is sometimes I do think it's worth, if it's like the very end of the stage, it might be worth locking something like Salvager, because it feels like you need that time. And so if you're coming up on a crucial round and you can buy that time, I think people click this augment way too often in bad situations where they are going to lose HP. And we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast, but one of the biggest placement swings in the game for a lot of players is that they just lose a life because they just don't have a strong board because they're transitioning. So buy yourself that time. One trick that I sometimes do is I actually open up chat and I can type in what components I have to help like organize my thoughts on what I want to do. And then it'll help you like understand what you can do, because you don't have time to always like alt tab, or if you're playing on mobile or whatever, just like pulling up something to kind of organize your thoughts, because it'll help you with like your turn, because Salvager can be super powerful and really clutch. But I see some people mess it up.
Yeah, I've actually never even considered like locking this or delaying it. I usually like, I feel like if I don't have time, I'll just be like, yeah, I didn't need this in the first place. Like, I'll just go for something else. It's definitely really really bad to take this and like try to do this under time pressure. Um, that chat thing is interesting that you mentioned, because when Salvador used to be an augment, I remember like Goobin specifically like watching my gameplay, and he was watching me with Salvage Ben, and he was like, "Oh, you're not like typing your items into the chat," because like this is something he always said. He would just like type out like all of his components, and then he would like type all of his components in the chat, so he would like go back and see. And like I tried doing that for a few games, and it just did not click with me.
Yeah,
I feel
maybe
like
your brain doesn't work that way.
yeah, I feel like I was just wasting more time.
I will
Um,
say I have done Salvager on PvE rounds and I still mess it up. It's not easy. Sometimes the fact that you have so much time might confuse you because you think that you have more time to think. So and
oh
also
yeah,
you get more drops, so it just like messes everything up. You might get crazy dizzy because you end up like instinctively picking up the orbs. You're like, wait, I don't want to slam because I want to see my items, and then it just like messes you up completely.
wait, I feel like high key it's like bad on neutrals, just because of bench space. Because like you'll get the remover, so that's already -1, and then you get like 3 other components or something, and then you're just sitting on like you don't even have enough room to like bench one like three component item unit, because you'll just be item bench locked.
Fair enough. I'm trying to give pragmatic advice, saying like, hey, listen, don't. There's the human element of it. You're probably just gonna still mess it up.
Oh, I mean, I think the charm's like pretty good, but they just need to fix this item bench thing, man. Like it is just getting it.
Agreed.
The item bench is getting in the way of progress of this game. Of yeah, like how are we supposed to compete with the AIs when like they can do the item, like they can play around the item bench and we can't because we're human.
The TFT AI.
We're
It
gonna
can
get
roll down seamlessly. It can salvager perfectly. It can
yeah,
stay open to every line and flex.
yeah, Mortog needs to fix this before we get replaced.
All right, a couple of other things I want to wrap up here since we kind of threw out so many different texts. A couple of warnings. The first is it's a PSA. Scrappy. Scrappy is a charm that says 2 champions without items gain a temporary full item. That can actually go on Yumi if you have playing Nora onto your board. I don't know the conditions of that, but just be very mindful. So what I try to do is I try to follow the rule of having units on, but I try to bench Nora to avoid that situation because sometimes I've clicked this and I only have one item and I'm like, where'd the second item go? And then I look and I hover and then Yumi has the other item for some reason.
Yeah, it also goes on dummies, which is sometimes you can't avoid. So don't click this if you have a. I don't think it can go on. Okay, actually, I don't even know. It might be able even to go on sentinels that have items. I don't remember. Like intuitively, it shouldn't because like the sentinels actually have an item and the scrappy is supposed to go on things without items. But I think it might because it's also not even supposed to go on dummies. So like, why are we even talking about what's intuitive?
Do they give good dummies to? Like, do they at least give good items to dummies, like a Warmog or something, or is it just like
Oh
giant
no,
Slayer?
it
Dummies?
doesn't go on them. It just disappears. Like if you have
Oh, they consume it, like they absorb it.
yeah, if you have
Oh,
precious, like
God.
you just click this and yours is -4.
What
So
the heck? All right.
I don't remember if it goes on like the dummies with emblems or if it goes on the sentinels or not. But just to like save your 4 gold, probably just don't click this if you have a summon that you can't bench. Pretty much.
All right. Noted. The other thing that I wrote down just as a PSA, it might not work the way you want it, is Magic Mirror. This one says gain a 1-star copy of a random champion you feel at last combat. There's a couple ways you can manipulate this, but somebody once tried to do it on a 3-star unit because they want to like accelerate, their 4 cost or whatever, and it just didn't give them a unit. So just as a little PSA, it's a little bit of a bug. Not sure how applicable that is, but that has happened before. All right, Dishsoap, let's wrap up the pop quiz, shall we? All right, Dishsoap, you're 14 out of 30. Your win rate's climbing on this one. So let's see if we can slow you down and stump you.
Oh wait, you've been keeping track of like the score the whole time? I didn't even
Yeah,
know.
that's what the show notes is. That 14 out of 30 is your accuracy rate.
Okay, not gonna lie. Okay, this doesn't even make any sense. But like I thought that was a date, but it's obviously not a date. It's obviously not a date. But I think I just like yeah, I just skimmed past it, assuming it was a date every single time.
No worries, no worries. I've been keeping track.
All right.
Question number 1 on pop quiz. There is currently only one augment that averages a 3-point X when you click it at 2-1. What is it? And again, it's always Masters Plus.
I feel like this is it's Disneyland. It's not even real, but it's a sugar prismatic.
Sugarcraft Crown?
Mm-hmm.
That is correct. It's the only one at 3.98. Now you said is Disneyland. It's not real?
Oh, it's always been the best augment for like the first few days of the patch, like every single patch. It's just because it really, really abuses unoptimized comps. Like if you just give like 2 extra rounds to the Sugarcraft comp, it'll just win. Like your average game is just played on such a tight margin that if you can just cheese a couple rounds, you're just chilling. I think against like more optimized boards, especially in like a tournament setting, and even just like a super high elo challenger lobby setting, I think it gets like a lot worse.
I agree. You can get punished really, really hard if you just click it just thinking that's going to be a 3.9.
But I mean, it's not bad because I mean, like if you have the Soraka already, Soraka's a really good early game. Rumble's a really good early game tank. It's one of the only crowns that gives a full item. So we're not saying it's bad. It's just
it's implying that it's like the best augment in the game. It's 2-1, and it's just not.
It's not the best augment in the game.
Agreed. Nice. That's a good one. And that one's a little bit easy because I think you would know that one. But do you know the exact inverse? There's also only one augment that currently averages a 5-point X when you click out 2-1. Everything else is 4.9 or better, but there's only one augment at 2-1 that averages a 5-point X. What is it?
I'm looking at the traits right now, not the augments. Just like let me refresh. Like maybe it's like one of the shitter +1s. Okay, multi crown's like really bad because I think it's like one component, and it's not even that good early. But I don't think it like is in the 5s. Man, these traits are not even that bad. On 2-1?
On 2-1, I mean, you're right. They're not that bad, but that's why I say there's only one. There's only one.
Okay, multi-striker crown. Multi-prismatic. That's my guess.
Ooh, okay. Kind of close, kind of close. It is Preserver +1. Preserver
Oh,
is terrible at
interesting.
2-1 in particular.
Oh, I mean, I guess like I knew that was bad. I just didn't think it was in the fives. So
Yes. Preserver Crest. It goes Preserver Crest, then Chrono, then Multi Striker. So you were actually pretty close. All right.
I think Preserver still is a full item. That's actually crazy to me because he
Oh
gives
no,
like a
no, it's
nat.
Preserver. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Oh, is this or is it gold?
I was saying it's a
Oh,
gold augment.
oh, oh. For some
The
reason.
Preserver Prismatic is a 4.8,
Oh, oh
but
wait,
Preserver Crest is a 5.1. It's just
wait.
really bad.
I didn't think multi +1 for gold was even that bad. Like, I'm looking at it now. It's pretty. It's really bad. I was assuming like the prismatic one because it gave you nothing. It gives you a glove or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. By the way, do you think that's actually like a compliment to Riots because there's like only one of these augments in like the 3.x's and like only one or two that are like at that 5.x range? Does that mean that augment balance is actually pretty good?
Oh, it kind of is actually.
Nah,
Okay.
okay, all right, there you go.
I'm,
Some
I'm,
positivity.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't really know if I glazed them too hard, but I think. I mean, obviously there's. I think most of the augment high rolls have to do with specific spots. Like if you hit like this augment and like the spot is broken, and obviously there's augments that are just above average. But I really don't think augments are at a state of the game where like you just see this and like you win, and that's been the case a lot of patches in TFT, and I don't really think that's the case right now.
Okay. All right. Question 3. Filtering out every potential artifact augment, what is the highest performing artifact item at 2-1 off of Portable Forge? So the filter is Portable Forge, pick that 2-1. But I filter out everything. Like there's like 10 of them, right? Every prismatic artifact, every what the forge, every possible ways you can get it. What is the best performing artifact? Just raw AVP, Portable Forge at 2-1.
Permission to look at the artifact. The things if I look at item, if I okay, maybe I find a site without stats because I think that might influence it. Let me just look at list of TFT artifacts. I won't look at tactics not tools. Like,
You can
obviously
open
that's
the
cheating.
TFTAcademy team builder.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah.
That is actually true. Go to TFT Academy Team Builder if you are in this situation. All right. It probably was Scepter, but then they removed Scepter, so it's not Scepter. We probably have to remove Scepter from the website, by the way.
That is probably something we should do. You're
Yeah,
correct.
I would probably be happiest to see Manazane in most of the spots, but I don't know if it's Manazane. I feel like Locket on 2-1, like Locket's not good until you have like a bunch of other stuff with it, so it's probably not Locket. My gut is Manazane. It low key might be my gut's actually telling me it's Eternal Despair because you get that shit on like a early Mord 2-1, it just goes crazy, and that item always has like good AVP. I'm guessing it's Manazane or I mean Loki. It could be the DFG because DFG is just like really really strong because it's like bugged. I'm between Manazane, DFG, and Unending Despair. I'm actually gonna go Unending Despair. I have a gut feeling about this.
Final answer, lock it in.
Yeah.
You are correct. It is Unending Despair, and it did gap Manazane, but Manazane is the second best, so you basically nailed the 1-2. The third is Trenchcoat. People take Trenchcoat.
Yeah.
Good early game, and then you eventually find ways to abuse it late game.
I think the sneaky thing about Unending is it gives 40 armor, and 40 armor is cracked on stage 2. Because like,
Oh, you're right. I didn't know that. I thought it just gave you straight up HP. Oh.
no, 40 armor is crazy on stage 2.
Yeah, because there's so many things auto attacking, so you reduce a ton of damage.
Yeah, I want to say like probably like more like 80% or more of the damage on stage 2's physical. So
All right. Impressive intuition, Dish. So way to logic your way through that. Let's see if you can do question 4. There's a theme going on with today's pop quiz. When you sort by 3-star raw AVP, every unit in the game averages better than a 4.5. So if you look at all the 3-star AVP, every unit averages better than a 4.5, except for one. What is the one unit worse than that? It's the clear worst 3-star in the game.
wow, I don't know this at all.
You can look at the roster of units if you want.
Oh no, I'm on the TFTAcademy.com team builder.
Nice. Would you like a hint?
Oh my god, that's just are you gonna give me the cost?
Yes, I was gonna give you the cost.
Is it 1?
No.
Oh, okay. That actually helps. I actually thought it was Ash.
All right, that might be the hint then. I was gonna actually tell you the exact cost, but
oh, it's Trist. It's just Trist. I don't know why I didn't. It's just Trist. It's just Tristana.
Final answer?
Yeah.
That's right. That is correct.
I mean, like this unit, like Tristana 3 is worse than Callista 1 in the Callista comp. So how are you ever gonna use her? Like you can't play Reroll Blaster without like playing the 3 cost because the 3 costs actually have AoE. Like Ezreal does more single target and AoE than Trist 3. So I mean, the only purpose for her is like her utility.
Item holding. That's basically it.
Item holding and utility, and you don't need that at 3-star.
And the only comp that you ever like seriously rolled Tristana was Molten Caramel. Even then, you'd sell Tristana 3 for Smolder.
Yep.
Because it's just better. So, all right, that's pretty sad. By the way, they did buff Trist in this patch specifically as well.
Oh, I mean, like that unit, unless she's like actually one-shotting stuff on her ult, is not going to be good at 3-star. And like one-shotting by like overkilling them, because I mean, she like knowing it probably does enough damage like one shot like a Giga Tank.
Yeah, if you want to play Tristana, I suggest queuing up set 5 because Hellion Tristana is actually pretty good, but this Tristana Blaster Fairy pretty bad.
Yeah, it's kind of lame, but I do like how you can push the front line back sometimes. I think that's kind of neat.
I like the utility of your Tristana. I agree. She's pretty cool. All right, final question. Just so far, very strong. Varus has been dethroned as the best 4-cost 3-star in the game in Raw EVP. So who is it now?
Kallista's amazing, so that's my guess. Or it might be Nasus. Okay. Like, do any of these units get changed? I feel like it's not Fiora because I don't think it's any of the melees. It's definitely not Karma. Rakan sucks. Kench is a CC. I don't think it's Tarek. If it's Tarek, I'd be shocked. And I don't think it's Rise either. I mean, I know from the past that Kalista was insane. So if it's not Varus anymore, I'm just gonna guess Kalista.
That is correct. It is Kalista.
All right.
Well done, man. Wow, you aced it today. Nice job. You only got one wrong.
I'm a beast.
How's it feel? You reclaim your former glory because I was giving you some really hard ones over the past set.
Yeah, I don't know. I sometimes stumble upon like some YouTube shorts of just like this of like 3-star battles and like 3 stars just doing some random shit. It's just kind of interesting to see. And I saw like videos of like Varus 3 with like some Ord items and like some perfect setup killing a full ward of 3-star 5 cost. But then I also saw a Varus 3 lose to a Kalista 3 1v1. So I don't really understand how all that works, but yeah, I've seen that stuff.
Nice job. Nice job. All right. Good premonition for this week. Let's wrap it up with Q&A. So let's do a couple quick ones here. The first one from Little Pretz. Different competitive games have training drills that players can repeat daily in order to slowly improve at the game. An example could be an aim lab for shooters to help do those drills. Does TFT have any similar drills to help improve your skills?
Not really. There's people that have made like roll down simulators, but okay, like it might work for you, but for me, it doesn't feel like the same thing. Because it's like done in a browser, and it's like it just doesn't feel like it's the real game. For me, it's just like I just have to go in there and get the reps in. Because like eventually, like especially if you're trying to learn like a specific comp, if you play it enough times, you'll start recognizing the patterns. Or you just get faster on the roll down with just enough reps. I mean, I guess that's not really your question. I don't really think like there are roll down simulators, but I personally don't like them. But if you want to check them out, then it might work for you.
Fair enough. If you're talking about mechanical drills in TFT, I don't think there are many of them just because there's not that many mechanical aspects of TFT. The roll down being one of them can be. I would say that if you do want to do drills for the roll down, if you don't take hyper roll very seriously, it's a way for you to get familiar. In fact, I actually highly advocate for hyper roll if you are trying to learn a new set and you're familiar with TFT mechanics, but all you want to do is just see the units, not worry about making your econ, not worry about anything, not even worry about your rank, because you're just going to naturally level up to 8th and 7, and you're going to be able to do a roll down. So it's like an easy way to just get the visual familiarity with the set. So that's like one drill you could possibly do.
Honestly, yeah, that sounds better than like risking your like losing your LP, like just learning some stuff. You can just send it in a hyperroll. Doesn't even matter.
One person that actually did this a lot is a prominent ranked player named Darth Noob. He's also a Reddit moderator for the competitive TFT subreddit. And he kind of cut his teeth in terms of like learning a lot of stuff through Hyperroll. He's now, of course, like a top 10, permanently top 10 NRA ladder challenger player. But he's come from Hyperroll, so he's a person that can advocate for that.
I didn't even know that. That's cool.
All right. The last question, Owl's back. He says, is TFT struggling to be a for fun game or a competitive game, in your opinion?
Is it struggling to be a...
Is it struggling with his identity of being like a for fun, like, casual, like experience of like League of Legends, Runeterra, and being an auto battler, and a competitive game?
Oh, not really. I feel like it's just kind of firmly in the space of being for like the vast majority of people, it's firmly in the space of being like the for fun, cool game where like casual game where random cool shit happens, and it's random. But like obviously, we've been sitting here yapping about like the in depth like skills to this game, and there's like it's obviously an extremely deep game. But I feel like TFT as its identity, as what most people think of it as, and as probably what Riot markets it as, like with like all like the chibis and stuff, is just like the fun chill game. So I don't really think it's struggling with the identity, but I mean, obviously, I think TFT is an incredibly deep game. All of the people that like develop TFT know this as well. That's why they do tournaments. That's why people actually play this full time, because it's like that kind of rewarding to learn. But for like its actual identity, no, I don't think it's struggling at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably maybe because we're biased because we're
Yeah.
doing stuff like this podcast and TFT, and we're very deeply rooted in the scene. But I think people have this idea that variance is at odds with being competitive or having competitive integrity, and that's not true at all. The fact that variance exists is what creates a lot of the complexity that we not just like love to dive deep on, but also have fun with. Right? The variance is silly, it's wacky, it's chaotic, but it's also like incredibly nuanced with how you approach things. If everything was very solved, right? If anything, just to give you an example of something that's not good for the game, which is people talk about how Callista Rakan 5 Fairy is like the same thing every time. That's what happens when there's not much variance. It's like it's variance resistance because you just need a Rage Blade, you just need like a Stone Plate. You take almost any generic combat augment that can make you really effective, and you take any kind of generic econ to get you there. It's like that's actually an example of like when variance is needed. Like there's actually a composition that has minimized everything that makes TFT fun and deep, and it kind of creates this very binary, not interesting, lack of agency composition that people kind of hate now. So I think if anything, use that as an example to kind of show you was like, is it a for fun game or a competitive game? They're not divorced from each other fundamentally. They actually can complement each other very beautifully. And I hope that you can take that example home.
Yeah, I don't actually usually like bringing this take up because usually people like kind of disagree with it. But I think on average, by the way, that's the important thing. I actually think variance usually ends up like being like a really high skill element of the game. And it's where the best players find their advantage a lot of the time. It's just like knowing the variance, playing around it, knowing what's possible, stuff like that. Um, like okay, like this sounds bad because I once said 11, but I actually think like encounters favored like stronger players way more often than they favored weaker players.
Wow,
But
that's
like
a hot take.
but the thing is like you would never remember because you just remember this time like this one guy got like bailed out this one time, but like you don't really think about the fact that on average like they don't know they're supposed to take this one option because of like X, Y, and Z, but you know that, so then you get the advantage and you get like the second instead of the fifth, and then they like trolled their spot or whatever. Like you don't see that, but you just remember the time where they just get bailed out by like Kha'Zix or some shit.
Yep.
But like that's the thing is because like averages don't really match up with actual perceptions of human memory because you just remember like when it goes bad. But I do think on average that like the more shit more throws at you, like the more skill you need. But the thing is like to a point it's just not that fun. Like for example, I don't really like crab raid that much, even though like I probably should, because based on what I just said, crab raid probably Well, I mean, not really, because like the reason I don't like Crab Rave is because like it doesn't punish early econ mistakes. You just get like all your econ animals for free. So maybe it's like a bad example. Uh, but another example is like I feel like loot subscription is like low key kind of high skill, unless you just get like double emblem cheesed, and then it's not.
Yeah, there's a tipping point of when it becomes
Yeah.
too
I don't know.
much.
Like I don't really know where this argument's going because like there's tipping points all the time, but like if you don't really reach those tipping points, variant's good, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think you'd be surprised. I wish they could show you your average placement on portals for your profile because I
Mm.
think people would be really surprised about where some of the top players' highest average placement is relative to others. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Dishsoap has a really high AVP on something like loot subscription, and is one of his lowest might be like 3 champions, even though he like might want 3 champions or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
I'm just always gonna say on 3 champions. It's like, might be my worst,
Yeah, but it
honestly.
might be his like worst performing AVP. So
Yeah,
you'd be very surprised how often that might happen because I would love to see those stats one day.
I think it's like different tournament though, because like the argument is in like a low sample. Like if you actually just think like if you're in the mind of like you think you're like a lower skill player, like you just pray for like the 5% bailout on this random portal.
Right. There's like a curve to it, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Interesting stuff. Thanks for the great questions, and thanks for another great episode. Once again, thank you to all the people that support our Patreon, either sending the questions or interacting with us. Make sure to check all that stuff out. If you want to support us, either through the content here on this channel or anything else, just hop on over to our TFT Academy Discord on our website, or support us through Patreon. Every little bit really goes a long way. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next episode is going to be our last of the set, and it's going to be after the World Championship. So this is like the final send off of basically like set 12 for us, because when we do our next episode, it's going to be like reflecting on the set. So any final words?
I hope I'm in a good mood then.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I mean, honestly, man, I gotta be real. I did not think you were gonna win like set 11 worlds because it felt like too perfect of a storyline with like we launched TFT Academy when Dishsoap won regionals. It's like there's no way that like in set 11 he just makes it back to back and just wins it, because that'd just be too perfect, and it happens. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe weird things have happened.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, I try your best. That's all we can really expect. This has been TFT Study Hall with Frodan and Dishsoap. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time for more TFT action.
Yeah, see you guys.